What are some NSFW history facts that don't get taught in school? Best of Reddit. Daily new uploads. Subscribe and like for more. Just do it. Ben Franklin was a super sex freak and loved to tell younger dudes to have sex with old women. Ben Franklin was the original MILF hunter. Gilf hunter. If you are enjoying the video, subscribe and hit the bell to be notified of my new videos. When he fired, many women turned up at his funeral from what I recall reading. Apparently Ben Franklin had a Viking funeral. All cats are grey in the dark. In the dark all cats are grey. Powdered wigs were invented to cover up head sores caused by syphilis. Syphilis also eventually destroys your nose, which is why old Timmy writing frequently refers to how prominent a person's nose is while expounding on their moral character. Essentially, this guy is super great. He doesn't even have syphilis. So you're saying Voldemort had syphilis? Voldemort wasn't old Timmy, he really came to power in the 1970s 1980s, so my guess is cocaine. An obscene amount of cocaine. Do enough blow, you'll get magic powers too. And smallpox scars too, and lice and all kinds of nasty things, because while population was booming, indoor plumbing and clean water were not things yet. The powder was used to kill lice. It's powdered sugar, so the lice hate the sugar. It's delicious, sir. Syphilis may also be the reason it's considered polite to lift one's pinky finger while drinking tea. Allegedly Louis XIV and his court were so syphilitic they could not bend their pinkies, and it became vogue to announce that you had syphilis in that way. Keeping one's pinky finger apart is a tradition that goes back to the Middle Ages, when the pinky was supposed to be kept clean in order to dip into the spice dish while eating. The common folk often didn't have spices, but the wealthy always did. So it became a bit of a status symbol that carried over through the centuries long after it no longer served any practical purpose. A number of channels about medieval culture have touched on this. Here's one such source. https://youtube/WROWT3XJVU?N29s. It's so they could keep that finger clean to scoop salt and spices during feasts. Also, syphilis caused hair to be patchy and fall out. During the Age of Sail, anytime a large ship would come into port, the men often wouldn't be allowed shore leave for a few days. So you would see small boats packed with prostitutes heading out to the ship at mooring. Larger ships of the line would have over 500 men aboard, so there could definitely be a couple hundred ladies brought aboard behind the captain's back, and with virtually no privacy aboard. You would have spaces in the ship with hundreds of couples going at it at once. There were definitely a lot of captains that didn't allow any women aboard, so the sailors on those ships would just have to wait until they could go ashore. Many children were conceived on the gun deck, amongst the cannons. They became known as a son of a gun. Did you make this up? Makes the term seem both more badass and insulting at the same time. The father of microbiology, Antony van Leeuwenhoek, was the first to examine semen under a microscope immediately after ejaculating in his wife. The daddy of microbiology, the daddy of microbiology, the who's your daddy of microbiology. His wife must have found that to be cold. It was actually warm. Enjoying the video? Leave a comment below. 3. So does that also make him a father of cream pie? Pretty sure that existed before him. Cleopatra was nicknamed Regina Meretrix, the queen of the whores. High-class whores though, not slum prostitutes. There is a distinction in Latin. High-class whores were actually educated and also participated in the diner discussions. Queen of the escorts would probably be a better translation then. Better connotation. Like escorts, as an honor or an insult? Insult, to be sure, but one with a modicum of respect. Wasn't the Roman Emperor Claudius' wife known to moonlight as a prostitute? In all likelihood this and all other cases of wealthy, nobly born women prostituting themselves is likely slander, especially when it was written after the fact by male authors who were not fond of their husbands. Not to say that wealthy women didn't have affairs, but the idea that they exchanged sex for money is patently stupid when you consider they were often among the 1% of society. What is a handful of coins going to do for you when you own hundreds of acres of land worked by thousands of slaves, live in luxury and dress in silks and fine linens, and only eat the most extravagant food? Like, sure, I have Bill Gates money and servants like the Queen of England, but I guess I'll fuck that guy for a Franklin or two. Catherine the Great had a parlor room filled with explicit, erotic furniture she commissioned personally. We're talking blowjobs carved into chairs, an end table where giant dicks torrential cumshots were holding up a marble countertop, a woman getting eaten out by a demon on a throne. Homegirl had taste. She was German and yet she ruled Russia. Imagine that shit in Stalin's era. Do you know who her furniture guy was? I'd like to commission one of these pieces please. Sluttery Barn. Edit. Thanks for the gold. I thought of another one. Crate and Bayhole. It's all been destroyed but holy shit look at this lol. https://www.buzzfeed.com/mandacruiso/the-x-rated-furniture-of-the-great-is- something. President Lyndon Johnson was obsessed with his dick and loved to show it to people. He called it Jumbo. So President Johnson liked to show people the President's Johnson. President Johnson is a nickname. His real name was Lyndon B. Smith. Lyndon B. Johnson will be giving you Lyndon D. Johnson soon. The pants phone call is one of the funniest things I've heard. Link and transcript. http://americanradioworks.publicradio.org/features/lbj_hager.html. See if you can't leave me an inch from where the zipper, burps, ends, round, and back to my bunghole, so I can let it out there if I need to. When the inseam is too high it's like I'm bouncing on a clothesline. LBJ is one of my favorite presidents because he's just so damn funny. True story time. LBJ was roommates with my great-great-grandfather at Texas State. LBJ stole some of his pants. Don't forget to leave your comment. That man really loves his pants. It was apparently appropriately named. He intimidated foreign leaders with it. The German army was given methamphetamines during their invasion of France, Belgium, Netherlands in 1940. This was the other part of Blitzkrieg that isn't really talked about. For the first 3 days the German army advanced without rest. No stopping or sleeping for 3 days straight. If you got tired they just gave you more meth. The drug may have also played a role in why the Panzer divisions refused to stop even after being ordered to several times by high command. They only finally stopped advancing when Hitler personally ordered the halt. TLDR. An army of methed up Nazis took down the largest army in Europe in a few weeks. Edit. Netflix has a good documentary series on it now. What's the name of the series? I'd be interested in taking a look. I haven't kept up much with World War II since the History Channel went full reality TV. Its Greatest Events of World War II in Color Episode 1 that goes over the drug assistance the Germans had. I think they still give pilots a form of meth when they need to stay alert for long missions. Anne Frank's diary talked a lot about masturbation, but most of it was edited out. And about her lesbian crush on one of her friends. Keep going. I'm almost there. She would have been 90 this year. Aubergine. Water droplets. Water droplets. Water droplets. The one time Reddit won't slam you with downvotes for using images. Here is an excerpt of such a part of the diary. Until I was 11 or 12, I didn't realize there was a second set of labia on the inside, since you couldn't see them. What's even funnier is that I thought urine came out of the clitoris. When you're standing up, all you see from the front is hair. Between your legs there are two soft, cushiony things, also covered with hair, which press together when you're standing, so you can't see what's inside. They separate when you sit down and they're very red and quite fleshy on the inside. In the upper part, between the outer labia, there's a fold of skin that, on second thought, looks like a kind of blister. That's the clitoris. This would have given me more information than I got in health class. I, too, went to public school in a US southern state. This is a better description of female anatomy than I've ever seen in a textbook. So maybe it's not so strange if someone had masturbated while reading it then. Eyes. I was actually taught this in school. You were taught to masturbate while reading NES diaries? What an awesome school. Apparently bullets aren't the only kind of thing being shot in school. The version I read in school definitely had at least a fair bit of that in it. If I recall, her father took most of it out. He left in one bit with her cousin though. Well, not that it's unusual for a 15-year-old girl, maybe it's just not considered as worth mentioning. French President Félix Faure went out via death by blowjob from a mistress. Don't forget to leave your comment. In my 80s, in bed with a belly full of wine with a woman's mouth around my cock. Tyrion Lannister, best fucking character ever. Tyrion Lannister, best fucking character ever. Shame he existed for just 4 seasons. Honestly, just a shame they cancelled the show after season 4. Really thought they were onto something. Guess it's better to be done early than to absolutely mangle the story and ruin the entire narrative. The Dream. Death by Snoo Snoo. In the 12th century, a philosopher named Peter Abelard challenged the church teaching on sexual morality, pointing out that no ceremony of man could make an inherently immoral act moral. The act would have to be already generally moral. Therefore, sex before marriage really couldn't be considered a mortal sin. He fell in love with the wrong woman and had his nuts cut off. This made him angry and sad. He then wrote a book. I feel like angry and sad is a massive understatement. Edit. This was just a one-off. First Silver Mayo. Thanks kind stranger, haha. Okay, it made him quite irate and melancholy. Greeks were heavily into sodomy on both sexes. Women were only required to be virgins vaginally prior to marriage. Every other orifice was fair game. The loophole. The poophole loophole. It's because I love Jesus. Well, you might love Jesus, but the ancient Greeks didn't. Well, you and Garfunkel and Oates. https://www.youtube.com/watch?bv1nug6hj0. Makes a lot of sense in a time before birth control. Romans brought it to the next level, but sex was man to man only, and always as a display of power. Tic puta canis, uxa, habir duos martial, 11:43, and you, my dear wife, just pretend you have 2 pussies. I thought sexuality was okay if you were the one doing the fucking. The one getting fucked was seen as effeminate. Yeah, pretty much. Not they used the word gay, but for simplicity they would only consider receiving anal to be gay, not giving. Early colonizers of the United States used corn cobs as toilet paper. Cornholing. Why corn cobs specifically? Like, what advantage do they have over leaves? Also, how was there enough corn to do that? Did they reuse them? Corn was grown and served on cobs. Once the corn was eaten, the cobs were left over. Paper was rare and expensive. If you wanted to wipe your anus after defecating with something that was cheap and could be immediately thrown away, corn cobs were readily available and free. If you watch the documentary Babies, they show a Himba woman wiping her baby by rubbing the kid's butt over her leg. She then used a corn cob to scrape the poo off. At any rate, as the commenter below said, the porous nature of it seemed to do a good job of getting the shit off of her leg and making it dry. It also seemed relatively soft. I just imagine a family sitting around the table eating corn and the dad saying, "Hurry up kids, I gotta take a shit and we're out of cobs." Archaeologists find lots of poop, and lots of dildos. How is the poop not completely broken down? If you are enjoying the video, subscribe and hit the bell to be notified of my new videos. In any history course, the rampant raping done by most occupying forces around the world, for example Japan in World War II, pretty much every town, village, city that was invaded from the time of the earliest civilizations, it's been like this. Still happens today. Outside of modern professional fighting forces, raping and looting was always accepted as the best perk of being a soldier. Always thought the best perk was sleight of hand. Yup, Japan's massive rape of China, Russian rape after the fall of Berlin, etc. Occupation is always horrible. That moment when South Park helped me learn something the school didn't think to teach. According to Christianity, Jesus ascended to heaven. Hence you might think that, according to Christianity, no body part of him should be found on earth. However, this does not include Jesus's foreskin, as Jesus was, and born as, Jewish. He was circumcised 8 days after birth. Hence, when Jesus, supposedly, ascended to heaven, his foreskin, known as the holy prepuce or the holy foreskin, https://wikipedia.org wiki holy prepuce, remained on earth. Throughout the centuries, several churches claimed that they have the original holy foreskin, even several at the same time. The Holy Band. There was a Greek general who was supposed to lead a major expedition to Sicily. The night before he left, he got wasted and walked around Athens with his other drunk friends and knocked all of the penises off of the statues in Athens. This caused him to be arrested. He missed the expedition and they lost almost all of the men they sent to Sicily because only he knew the plan well enough to pull it off. Alcibiades. He then proceeded to bang the wife of the Persian emperor. Napoleon would ask that his wife, Josephine, not bathe for several days when he knew he would be coming home. My man's liked a stinky lady. I mean, he was French. At the Battle of Agincourt, most of the English archers fought pantsless because they had serious diarrhea and were literally shitting themselves as they fought. They won too. Is that really a win? No. They won the battle but lost their pride. They literally shit all over France, so I think that goes in the win column. I must admit I would retreat from a pantsless guy running at me with a sword while erupting shit all over the place. Running at me with a sword. Archers. Source on this? I'm sure you can find others, but here's a quick read: https://www.war-articles/time-english-soldiers-went-battle-without-pants-1.html. They simply dropped their pants and did what needed to be done. What a story. That's not a source. It says that the archers were in stationary positions at the side, so it was easy for them to drop their trousers when they needed to relieve themselves. It nowhere mentions or implies that they actually went into the battle without pants. Please do not disparage the sacrifices of our brave boys who dropped trow in the heat of combat. Jenny Wade was a prostitute and a madam. She wasn't a kind and generous soul who was treating the wounded from both sides of the Battle of Gettysburg. She was offering her services to both sides. When you take the bus tour with recorded audio, the storyteller narrating the tour is supposed an old-timer reflecting on the battle. When you pass the Jenny Wade house, still standing, he says something like, "That's the Jenny Wade house. Jenny was a friend of mine. She was a friend to many." I always liked that subtle nod. I wonder if that's where the Killers got the title for the song "Jenny Was a Friend of Mine." Thomas Jefferson had 6 kids with one of his slaves. Enjoying the video? Leave a comment below. 3. Not just one of his slaves. His wife's half-sister, who was a wedding present to them from their father. Ponce de Leon was looking for the fountain of youth. That was a euphemism for looking for a cure to his impotence. I have never heard this. Have no idea if it's true or not, but that explains a lot. Ancient Greece society was all about butt sex. It gets glossed over or referred to in a passing and vague way. In fact, part of the curriculum of well-off kids, from fancy Athenians to tough Spartans, was being poked from behind by your teacher-tutor. Child grooming was more or less systemic, a necessary step in life for most men. If you look up Edward Russell in history books or even Wikipedia, you learn about his military service, including Admiral of the Royal Fleet for some famous battles. What they don't teach is that he threw a party so epic it's still being talked about 300 years later. In 1694, he threw a party for officers, and with 6,000 guests coming, wanted to make it special. So, he made the world's largest cocktail, drained the garden fountain and used that as a giant punch bowl with hundreds of gallons of liquor, over a half-ton of sugar, thousands of lemons, etc. He hired bartenders to paddle around in boats, scoop it up, and serve it to attendees. At some point, it began to rain, so they put a tent up over the fountain to prevent it getting watered down. About a week after they started, they had drank every last drop, the fountain was dry, and the party was over. The Rape of Nanking. That's def NSFW. Apparently George Washington was so attractive that when he was 17 he went swimming in a creek and some girls stole his clothes so they could see him wander around half naked. IDK if it's true or not though. Never heard of him, but Gorge must have been short for gorgeous, grinning face with normal eyes. Not necessarily NSFW, but pirates were one of the first people to have a healthcare plan of sorts. If you lost an appendage, there was a predetermined pay for everything that was lost or maimed. Also, there was a pretty large number of female pirates. For a time when women had little to no value in the workplace, they more or less had equal treatment and pay to other pirates. Okay, man. Wow. So the entire life of Julie Dolbini never gets discussed, but it's fucking fascinating. The fact that Lord Byron gets talked about as a playa but she doesn't is a damn dirty shame. But the existence of such a woman shows us a lot about the era she lived in. Julie d'Orbigny was the daughter of the French king's master of the horse, basically. Cavalry commander, managed the royal stables. As such, she was trained in horsemanship and swordsmanship as a child, arts at which she greatly excelled. After she got caught canoodling with a minor another courtier, her dad married her off to some older minor noble, hoping that would quell the scandal. Well, Julie d'Orbigny was not one to simply do what good girls do. So, finding marriage with a somewhat nobody kind of dull, she ran off with her boyfriend. They toured France, going from inn to inn, doing singing and exhibition sword fighting shows, riding on horseback to go from place to place. Well, eventually Julie got bored of her man, so she ran off with her girlfriend, the daughter of a nobleman. Now, when he did find out about the affair, this nobleman did what you do with disgraced daughters at a time, ship her out to a convent and try to make her forgotten. That is when Julie took matters into her own hands, and joined the convent to have hot, illicit, sexy lesbian nun sex. They left the convent by the only logical route, burning the place down and faking their own death. This, understandably, freaked the lover out a bit, who ran back to her family. The dad had Julie condemned in absentia for kidnapping. Now, remember how I said Julie used to tour France singing? Well, this comes in handy for her now, because Louis XIV, King of France, decides to pardon her and offer her a career at the opera. She'd continue her canoodling ways, having many lovers, both men and women. One evening, she even got into 3 duels against noblemen whose wives she had seduced, and even though they attacked her simultaneously, she defeated them all. She died of unknown reasons at age 33. Her gravesite is, to this day, unknown. A life like this, so scandalous, seems unlikely, but is very much the product of the era. The French king of the time was trying to separate himself from church influence, so to have a lady whose lifestyle was so controversial and unacceptable to religious institutions, is basically proof that the king was willing to overlook such things if a performer of good caliber could help promote the prestige of his court. Pretty damn cool, and overall a hilarious tale. She didn't die. Someone went back in time, helped her fake her own death and took her to the future to marry her. At least that's my plan as soon as I get this damn machine to work. Let's be real, she isn't going to marry you. She might, but not for long. Let's also mention that if a man took umbrage at her words or actions, she'd duel him, and win. If he got sour grapes over it, she'd seduce his wife and then talk about it to the point he'd have to duel her again, wherein she'd really fuck him up. She sounds like the person to be fucking best friends with. Rasputin's penis is kept in a jar in a museum for public viewing. Rah, rah, Rasputin, lover of the Russian queen. There was a cat that really was gone. Rah rah Rasputin, Russia's greatest love machine. The Russians kept his dick in a jar. I remember hearing that there have been a few people claiming that they have Rasputin's preserved penis. I'm not sure about the one on display, but there was one that turned out to be a pickled sea cucumber. Why ships had cabin boys? I think Reddit is gonna assume they raped them, but actually they ate them in the event of emergency. Probably also raped them, though. Enjoying the video? Leave a comment below. 3. Didn't know about the potential emergency rations, but I've heard they raped them. They were commonly referred to as peg boys because, if I'm remembering correctly, they would be forced to sit on pegs somewhere on the ship to get them ready, as it were, to service the crew. I'd always heard this and never looking into it. After a quick Google, it seems like it may not have been as popular as I'd heard, but who knows. I doubt there's a lot of primary documentation about the gang rape of a young boy in the Indian Ocean. I honestly doubt it. I get that people get horny and all that, but it seems so much more likely that someone wants a cheap apprentice to do menial labor than to gangbang them, and have them sit on wooden dildos. Did some stuff happen? Probably, but in the words of Vooglaff, some people like to get off to convoluted narratives and this reeks of it. The political smear campaign against Marie Antoinette involved a lot of dicks. In Sparta, the army generals forced male soldier pairs to have sexual intercourse. The goal was to develop strong relationships between the two men, so that in battle, they would die for each other and fight the enemies in order to impress their partners. Keep in mind that these men were married to women at home. Also, young boys in ancient Greece were also made to have sexual relations with older men, a sort of primitive sex ed. On a boy's wedding day, his fiancée would lie on a bed and dress up as a man while the two had sex, representing a transition from homosexuality to heterosexuality. Edit. Typos. John F. Kennedy took the virginity of his 19-year-old intern and had her give another guy a blowjob poolside. He was kinda a creepy dude in general. He also raped the wife of Ben Bradlee, editor of the Washington Post, on a boat. She repeatedly said no and he did it anyway. Something implications. No, that's when she doesn't say no. She's not gonna say no, because of the implication. Something no one says no to a Kennedy. He died 56 years ago today. Oswald didn't kill himself. With great power comes great pussy. Wait a minute, so he wasn't punished for this, or for the rape mentioned down this thread? Well, he was shot. How fucking weird the marginalia in illuminated manuscripts were. These were beautiful handmade books in a time when books were not very common and they had some really weird shit in the margins. Here are just a few examples of what I mean. NSFW. http://imgur.com/a/x6fus. https://i.imgur.com/99ilhrx.jpg. https://i.imgur.com/xfy2nha.jpg. https://i.imgur.com/nduxof4.jpg. https://i.imgur.com/3qc2mbg.jpg. Gandhi was a molester. Most of the ladies at his ashram were molested by him. He kinda went at it with a minor too. Nehru died of syphilis. Him and the viceroy's wife were going at it. Edit. For those that don't know, ashram means sanctuary or abode. I read somewhere that to prove his willpower he would sleep naked surrounded by a bunch of also naked underage girls. True. He would also do a show of might by penetrating then and not coming. The more I learn of the guy, the less I think he should be praised. The Catholic priests and monks had some big orgies back then. The Pope also. They never stopped. If we had the same medical practices today as we did a few hundred years ago, a woman could check into a doctor's office complaining that she was feeling emotional and the doctor would get her off with a vibrator. I might see a video starting like this. This was actually shown to be false. One person made it up in a book and people ran with it. That always calms me down. If you are enjoying the video, subscribe and hit the bell to be notified of my new videos. Good old-fashioned hysteria. The ancient Egyptians used bees in boxes as vibrators. I also remember hearing a discussion about all the kinky things the ancient Egyptians did with goats. Apparently goats were a fertility symbol or something back then. In the time of the Trojan War, men and boys very often had sexual relations. A lover and beloved. Helen could have easily been a boy, just a very pretty one. In 1920 to 1921 the Bolsheviks had two ideas of women's place in society going. One believed in pretty effective equal rights for women and sexual liberation. The other asserted that the state should assign every worker a woman at age 18 who would meet his needs. Both spoke of sex as a basic human need akin to a glass of water. Much of military history skims over the reality of rape from invasions. Apart from the rather short period of gentlemen's war in Europe, war was an expedition of raping and pillaging. After all, you had to convince the general public to join, and they usually cared a lot less about the leader's intentions than you would think. All the way up until the 20th century, peasant households would suck on the penis of infant boys as a means to calm them down when they threw a fit. Somewhat similar, food was usually chewed by someone then spit into the mouth of children too old to breastfeed but unable to eat solids. Also, if your baby was experiencing a cold and had mucus build up, it was common to suck it out of their nose before spitting it out. My mom chewed food for me when I was young. Everything in there is just crazy except that very last sentence. Tulsa race riots were omitted in Oklahoma. Emperor Elagabalus cross-dressed, married both a vessel virgin and a male slave, and asked doctors to castrate him and give him a vagina. He also may have prostituted himself. I'd be wary of stories of Romans doing things like this. They were very big on slandering people after their death. Indeed, it was standard to slander a former emperor if you seized power to establish yourself as more legitimate than they were. Well, yes, I murdered the emperor and the court and took the crown for myself. But you know that other guy? Well, he married a Vestal virgin and a male slave. I hear he liked being on the bottom so much, he even paid a surgeon to make his penis into a vagina. I don't know, sir. That seems. He also blew guys in the coat room for 3 denarii a job. How dare he? You're clearly a better emperor. That Julius Caesar was made fun of because he was banging a guy. Not because of the banging, but because he was the bottom in the relationship. That was the rumor and most likely a terrible slander by his opponents. However, none of them could have been proven to say as such, so Caesar decided to prove his manliness in the most basic way. He seduced the wives one of everyone who he thought was spreading that rumor, and then made sure everyone knew he did it. One or sisters, daughters, cousins, aunts or mothers, whatever. If it was female and closely related to you, he was gonna seduce one of them to teach you not call him gay. Yeah, there was another one where a senator accused him of being a spy when Caesar was still in the Senate, because he was reading a note and demanded he read the note aloud. It was a love note from the senator's sister. Hitler had one ball. Goering has 2 but very small. Himmler is rather similar. Ronald Reagan was a notorious womanizer during his acting years. He loved to brag about his stamina with women and would often get cross with women who did not climax fast enough. Allegedly, sex was one of his most favorite hobbies. According to Killing Reagan, wasn't Nancy Reagan the blowjob queen of Hollywood? Corpses were regularly thrown over walls to spread disease and demoralize the enemy soldiers. They probably weighed 90 kilograms and be shot over 300 meters by catapults. Blasphemous fool. Do you really believe a mere catapult could launch anything that weighed 90 kilos over 300 meters? Nay. Only a truly great siege engine such as the mighty trebuchet was capable of such an incredible featuring. Not catapults. Trebuchets are trebuchetmans. Depending on their state of decay, those bad boys would hit something and just explode everywhere sometimes. The rape, genocide and various other atrocities committed by Columbus and his gang. It gets surprisingly little coverage. It is taught in my country, mainly because my island's entire indigenous population was wiped due to disease and forced labor and killings. That's actually debatable. That's why we don't teach that in school. Edit. To clarify, what's debatable isn't the fact that those things happened but that Columbus was responsible for it. He literally cut off some of his men's hands for raping women. Up until very recently, humans rarely bathed with soap. Imagine how funky you smell after a weekend camping. Then continue building on that stench for a year. This isn't entirely true. Actually, it's pretty damned false depending upon the time period. Most of Western antiquity placed an enormous value on personal hygiene. Heck, the earliest examples of soap show up in 2800 BC in Babylon. Rome's obsession with personal hygiene might have contributed to their eventual decline. All those lead-lined pipes needed for their vast bathhouses. In fact, things didn't really get nasty until after the fall of Rome. However, that was almost exclusive to Western Europe, with other various civilizations like the Mesoamericans and obviously the Middle East and Asia still maintaining rigorous hygiene standards. Epinstein didn't kill himself. He also didn't spell his name that way. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like and hit the bell for more videos. Comment your views.